Shogun season finale, episode 8. That's what we're diving into today, and it was I'd say it was a bittersweet ending. Um, Definitely not what I was expecting from an ending because I had heard that this wasn't getting a season 2. I heard that this was a limited one-time miniseries event, kind of like Watchmen a few years ago on HBO. They just want to do one and done. So I don't know that it's coming back for season 2. So the ending kind of had me scratching my head, but we're going to get into it today. If you haven't already watched the episode, make sure to pause, go away, come back, watch it with me because I'm not going to do spoiler free. Again, warning, spoiler territory ahead. So without further ado, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you've had your warning. So we did not get the big battle I thought there was going to be. I thought the end of this, and again, I've never seen the original show. I've never read the book series, and that's the thing. I actually went online and looked this up after it was over because I was like, well, I had heard that they were not doing a season 2. Is that still the case? Because it left you like in sort of a state of going, well, what's going to happen now? Um, Essentially, after Marisako, after she dies, after Mariko dies, um, and that's kind of it. Like Blackthorn just sort of gives up, wants to go back, um, ends up finding out that he's been given back to Toranaga and the ship that was his is now sunk and burned and blame it on the Christians, but behind the scenes it was actually him the whole time manipulating everything. And you kind of left, I was left with a bittersweet feeling in my mouth about this man, about how, about his motives, which I thought were far more pure. But then when we get to the end, the bearded guy whose name I always forget starts with a Y, who was the traitor and everything. He gets caught, he gets called out on this, and Toranaga demands that he commit seppuku. And there's this big scene where they're preparing for that moment, the two of them on this hillside, and mostly it's exposition of him talking to Toranaga about, you know, that's what you planned all along. He's like, he's like, you really do suffer from the same. I forget the words he said, the terminology he used, but it was essentially like Toranaga suffers from the same weakness as all men when it comes to the ego, and so he's plans behind the scenes. He's always basically he accuses Toranaga of always wanting to be Shogun in the first place, and that's why he's manipulated all these things and let people die in his name. And you're left kind of wondering, is that actually the case? Is he a manipulative son of a bitch, or was this all just him trying to do what's best for, because he does mention, I'm doing this for the peace of Japan, no more warring nations, I will see it happen in my lifetime. And there's this sequence where they're talking about the future of where this is going from here, and they show these battlefields laid out, and at the end of it all, he got support from Lady Ochiba, and she took her banners from Ishido and gave them to him, but there never shows the battle. It just shows that that was the case, and Ishido was doomed from the start, because once that happened, some of the Christian Japanese council members withdrew, and so it was like a guaranteed victory. But it was done in like a potential future sequence, which was really weird the way they did that. So I don't think we're ever left with a confirmed answer in anything. The other side of this was the episode starts off with a really old man Blackthorn back in England, laying in bed, almost dead, cataracts, age. There's a samurai sword, there's a katana on the wall, and there's these grandchildren or somebody. Like, is this true? Did you really get that sword from a barbarian? When he in fact was the one called barbarian, but the Japanese. And I thought this was I thought this was literally him starting off as an old man remembering back, but then it turns out that it was like supposed to be a dream sequence of him in Japan dreaming about what it would have been like to be an old man had he returned. But essentially, this episode is about him, letting go of Mariko-sama and letting go of her. He has this moment where he helps Fuji, I think was her name, the consort. She is given her freedom by Lord Toranaga to go off and become a nun, and so she buries the remains of her, or she wants to bury the remains of her family members. And Blackthorn takes her out on the lake, and they put the ashes in the water along with the rosary that was Mariko's, so sort of as closure for this. And then he goes off to basically serve under Lord Toranaga for however long, and he makes some comments during that seppuku scenario where he's like, I don't think that Japan will ever be done with the Anjin. I think he will always be a part of this. So it leaves you wondering what is going to happen with the rest of this. But as I understand, it is just a one and done. It's expected for you to understand that yes, he does become the shogun. He does defeat the armies. There is historical fact behind this fiction. Um, Again, I've never read the books and I've never seen the original show, so I don't know if this is the same as the ending there and then those two places, but it felt somewhat bittersweet to me. Like, I loved the show. It's probably one of the best prestige period pieces I've seen in a long time. It's up there for me with Deadwood, and I could probably name more, but that's the one that popped into my head right now. And like a show that is really true to the source material and the culture and being that period piece. This felt very true to that. I know on social media it was dominated by things on like TikTok, like them going in and talking about how like all the Japanese people, staff and actors and crew that they brought over from Japan to work in Vancouver where this was filmed, and they had on set like literally Japanese cuisine chefs to make sure that the people who were here working in this foreign environment for them, because even though yes it's a Japanese themed show, you're still living and working in Vancouver in Canada. And so they had all these, from the costumers to the, people doing the culture and the speech and the food and everything else. They were immersing everybody in the Japanese way of life, even though they weren't filming in Japan. And that shows a level of dedication that, to me, it came through on screen in the sword fights, in the battle sequences, in the costuming, in the way that they all handle themselves, the walking, especially with the women, where they're doing the knees together and hands tucked here and walking like this because that was the way they were to do things. And there was a lot of precious time that went into making this feel like a really good period piece, and it definitely played out for me. And it was really interesting to me because I watched an interview last night with Cosmo, the guy who played Blackthorne, and what is her name? Anna, the girl who played Mariko. They were doing an interview with a YouTuber, and it was really funny because she's very personable. Like, she is absolutely, like, she was a singer, like in a girl band for years before she became an actress, and so I think she's more comfortable being on a stage, and doing press and stuff like this. And Cosmo does not seem like he is very comfortable with the press. Like, he was very, But what's interesting is like when you see him on screen as Blackthorne, and then when you see him in real life sitting, giving an unprompted, unscripted interview, um, it's a night and day. Like, it's really cool to see actors who are really good at their craft, and then in real life they're very reserved. They're not because they're not the people you see them portraying on screen. I think that's something we oftentimes forget about actors, is that they are not the characters they portray on screen. And so when you see them in real life, it's like, well, he was always very sure of himself, talking like this. I am Blackthorne, and God damn it, you cocksucking maggots, do this. He was always, that was his character, But then when you see him in real life, he's like kind of stuttering, and there's lots of ums and well, and he's just a normal person, and it's refreshing to see that. But I love the show. I wouldn't say no to a season 2, but I don't know enough about it to know if that's actually the case. I did hear that they were only doing season 1. I would love for somebody to confirm that, but all in all, totally worth your time watching all of this show. This was the season finale. Overall, I would give the show an 8 out of 10. It was just really good overall. There were a couple of moments where I just felt like the dialogue was a little weird sometimes. There were some plot points that I could pick up, but overall it was a great show. Prestige television at its best. I love this as a period piece. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. I got more shows. We've got all sorts of stuff coming up this summer, so stick around for more. And until then, everybody, stay safe. Happy viewing.